Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. It is Wednesday, which means during the first half hour, I'll be joined by my co-host, Dr. Jeff Galini, to perform another Science for Humans episode. Today, we're actually answering questions about creatine that are coming from Ben in Ohio. If you want to submit a question for Science for Humans, on the front page of superhumanradio.com, down at the bottom right-hand side, you can see a banner ad that says Ask the Scientist. If you go there, you can submit a question directly to Dr. Jeff. And while you're there, don't forget to ask for your free sample of I keep wanting to say Carbolin because I love that carbohydrate product. Crealkaline, the only buffered, patented creatine monohydrate supplement in the world. And don't forget to include your mailing address or it won't arrive and you'll wonder why.
This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Galini.
How you doing, Dr. Jeff?
I'm doing good, Carl. How about you this morning?
Wonderful. And I got to tell you, nothing has had the legs in the supplement industry like creatine. Nothing. Just when you think you've heard it all about creatine, some study is published now. I think I sent you the link to it yesterday, showing that post-menopausal women benefit from creatine supplementation because it increases bone mineral uptake.
Yeah, that was a very interesting study. And, the longer creatine is on the market, the more medical benefits we are finding. And, keep in mind, when we say creatine, we mean creatine monohydrate, the king.
Yes, and so yesterday at the end of the show, I mentioned that study, and just whimsically I said, creatine is king, and crealkaline is the king of creatines. Wasn't that cool?
That was cool. And actually, today I was thinking that, crealkaline will be the emperor of the creatine monohydrates. But that's perfect because, there are so many different types of creatines out there, and none of them have any research behind them. They come and go. So, when we say creatine, creatine monohydrate is the gold standard. And, your questions that have been coming in are great. And I wanted to mention that if I use your question on the show, that means it's a really good one. I'm going to send you a gift card for $100 worth of free supplements.
Wow. So, can I submit questions too, Dr. Jeff?
But if you got a good one, man, I'll give you $100, Carl.
Okay.
I think sometimes people are just, they're nervous and about sending things. So I thought, this way it kind of encourages them. Because there's no such question as a bad question unless you do not ask it.
And I tell you something that I learned in radio from Clear Channel, but chances are if you have a question, there's over 1,000 people in the audience that have the same question. So by you submitting it, you help them get their answers as well. So this question came from Ben in Ohio.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, Ben. It's kind of a two-part question. So the first part is, why are there so many creatine products that have multiple sources of creatine? That's a great question. And the answer is, why? If your creatine is so great, why do you need to mix it with creatine monohydrate or some other form?
Well, I think I know the answer too.
Yeah, go ahead. You know what the answer is.
Okay, this is something that the supplement industry thrives on. So, if you're confused about which creatine works best, and I mix all three of them into my blend, I got a better shot of grabbing you as a client, even though only one of them works great and the other two are questionable. You'll still buy my kitchen sink brand because you think you're covering all your bases.
And if you have three, then I'm going to come out with five, and now mine is better than yours because I got 5 forms.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of the bad thing I think about the supplement industry is, marketing comes into play, especially when we're dealing with creatine. Again, look at what is the most researched, studied, safest product. It is creatine monohydrate. all these other forms of creatine, have just kind of snuck onto the market in the last, few years. And guess what? They're all made in China.
Can I tell a personal story real quick?
You sure can.
My mom, in 2005, my mother suffered a stroke. In and around that time, a study had been published showing that creatine monohydrate helped resolve stroke faster in elderly individuals. I carried that study into her neurologist. She was unable to talk. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, that's fine as long as you use the creatine that was in the study. Well, it was creatine monohydrate. It wasn't creatine ethyl ester. It wasn't, conjugated creatine nanoparticles. It was creatine monohydrate. And so I gave my mother the creatine monohydrate in the small doses that were recommended in the study. They weren't doing loading. It wasn't 5 grams a day. And her doctor said, I started giving it to her the day after her stroke. The doctor said that he had never seen anybody come back from a stroke so completely. Her memory was intact. Her speech was intact, everything. I attribute it to the creatine monohydrate.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this before, but, creatine is one of those things that your body has to have. You don't have creatine, you cease to exist. It's one of the very few things that your body actually produces because it needs it. Vitamins and minerals, although they're essential, you can get those from food sources, and you can live without them for a period of time, but not without creatine. So there's a lot of ailments that I think that, people's bodies maybe are just not producing enough creatine, or, possibly their food sources, aren't, correct. They aren't getting enough protein. And by supplementing with creatine, we're seeing all these different types of ailments. People are having benefits to it. Pretty exciting stuff,
And then Ben wants to know, I guess another part of his question was, why use crealkaline over these other types of creatines?
Well, I think, like we said, I want to stress that creatine monohydrate is the only form of creatine that is backed by science. Some of the forms like HCl, their claim to fame is that it goes into solution better than creatine monohydrate. Who cares? I mean, that doesn't have anything to do with absorption.
Right.
Great that it mixes in a glass, but who's going to put 50 grams of creatine in a glass? At 1.5 grams or 3 grams, all forms are soluble. And of course, as we talked about, crealkaline is buffered creatine monohydrate. We just fixed the flaw. But the question, that Ben kind of alludes to then is, okay, we've kind of established that, this is why people mix things. It's more marketing. But people are confused on, multiple products like pre-workouts. I hear so many people say, yeah, I use a creatine, and they'll mention a pre-workout product.
Right.
That is not a creatine product. That's designed for pre-workout. And yes, there is a reason why you would have multiple ingredients, in a formula. But you're not going to get the benefits of creatine. I mean, it's just not going to be absorbed as effectively. So again, we want to talk about these kind of multiple formulas not being creatine products. So if you want the benefits of creatine, don't use a pre-workout and think that you're getting your creatine in.
What about those out there who claim that there was some early research done on the phosphate form of creatine? Because doesn't creatine have to donate a phosphate in order to feed the ATP cycle? So there are people out there who are using creatine phosphates, right?
They really weren't. Yes, you're correct. Inside the body, your body has to add that phosphate, but your digestive tract cannot absorb that form. That's why monohydrate is the most absorbable form. The other thing is to produce creatine phosphate, it is thousands of dollars a kilo. So the people that claim to have it, I don't believe they had it. I see so many different forms of creatine, that come in from China that are supposed to be like creatine HCl and are nothing more than creatine monohydrate with citric acid mixed in. Oh. So a lot of scamming going on there, Carl.
And people don't know because creatine is a commodity item, first of all. And like you said, it finds its way into all sorts of blends, pre-workouts, post-workouts. They'll always throw in a little creatine in there. And quite often, the amount of creatine is negligible, and or the form that they throw in there really isn't proven to be effective. So is that a good argument that you should just continue to buy a creatine monohydrate product like Crealkaline and then worry about your pre-workouts and post-workouts separately?
Absolutely. The biggest default to people getting results from their creatine is, there's too much marketing, loading, don't use it on off days, only use it on certain days. Remember that your body needs creatine every day, and you can utilize about 1.5 grams every 3 hours or so. So consistency. I always tell people, take it first thing in the morning. Don't try to worry about the best time of day, because what happens is, okay, I'm going to take it at noon. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I'm going to take it before my workout. I forgot to bring it. So you end up missing. You want to use it every single day, because it's about building up those creatine stores that is going to make it available. When you miss several days or you don't do it on weekends and such, you're really kind of wasting your money. You're not getting the best benefits to why you were using creatine, for your ultimate energy source.
The other trick that I notice is that people produce creatine products and they put caffeine in it, and that's because you can feel caffeine, so you immediately think the creatine is working, but it's really the caffeine. You could just have a cup of coffee and do the same thing.
Well, and that's what we were talking about, pre-workouts. All pre-workout products, are you still off caffeine?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so, all pre-workout products contain caffeine. That is what it makes a pre-workout product. People like that caffeine. So a lot of people who are using products, now a lot of the pre-workouts are down to 5 or 6 ingredients, 300 milligrams of caffeine, and everything else is a proprietary blend. And you normally will see some creatine, some arginine, some citrulline source in there. Again, we like those products because we feel it. We feel the caffeine, but you're not getting all the benefits of what you would want creatine for. So again, it's fine that it's in there, but don't count that as your creatine product. You want to add a standalone product, and don't use one that has a whole bunch in there. What is there to hide? And most of them too, Carl, as you notice that they're all proprietary blends. They don't tell you how much of each one is actually in there. And you wonder sometimes if they're all really even in there, because some of them I've never even heard of.
Proprietary blends are referred to as fairy dust within the industry, because it's like you don't really know what's in there. But I'll tell you something interesting. In 2008, there was a really well done study published that showed that caffeine consumption reduces creatine monohydrate uptake and storage in muscle. So wouldn't it be contrary to the reason that you take creatine to stack it with caffeine?
Absolutely. If you're looking for the best way, you don't want to take creatine with caffeine. It's like you said, it contradicts what the absorption aspect of that. So again, I like to just tell people to take your creatine by itself, and be consistent with it, and be careful with, the kind that we're using,
Why don't we do this? You want to take a break, and when we come back, we want to go through the short list of the different creatine products out there. The different forms of creatine out there, and just kind of touch on them individually.
Sure.
Okay. Here, we're going to take one quick commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Science for Humans. Do you know how to properly use carbohydrates to ignite your performance in the field and in the gym? You will now, thanks to this free book by EFX Sports. The Carb User's Guide for Maximum Performance reveals why omitting carbohydrates from your diet can totally crush your gains. Ever wonder how many grams you need for your specific sport? Not anymore. We give you the critical number you need to dominate your competition. You'll even discover the super carb that's taking the athletic world by storm. You must try it to believe it. Go to getcarbolin.com/carb guide today and get your copy absolutely free. Once again, it's GETKARBOLIN.com/CARBGUIDE.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Now I want to see if you can rock my beat. Now all hip-hop beats go boom, boom, tap. So check this out. Button number 1 is boom, boom. And button number 2 is
I don't think we can wait long
now
enough for button number 1 and button number 2. Welcome back to Science for Humans with my co-host, Dr. Jeff Galini. We're talking right now about different forms of creatine. So creatine monohydrate is the gold standard. It's the one that all the research has been done on in soldiers' alertness, soldiers that had to stay up at night. They showed that creatine monohydrate improved alertness and helped ward off sleepiness, resolving stroke. There are studies out there that show improved cardiac function in people with congestive heart failure when supplementing with creatine. All those studies are done on creatine monohydrate. But there are so many other forms of creatine out there that it's confusing, isn't it?
There's a new one every week. So, I thought we'd take some time kind of discussing and busting some of the myths of these creatines. One thing that you see in front of creatine monohydrate is micronized. And micronized is nothing more than milling that creatine down into a finer powder. It goes into solution. It doesn't do anything. I like the micronized creatine just because it's easier to work with from a manufacturing standpoint. Crealkaline is micronized. It's a 200 mesh. But the difference is micronized looks more like baby powder, and normal creatine looks like sugar.
Yeah.
But once you put it in water, it's all the same purity. So micronized was nothing more than kind of a marketing ploy to really describe, the mesh size. The next one that kind of came and went was creatine ethyl ester. They made a lot of claims, Carl, as you had read several years ago.
Right.
But there was no research. A study then came out that actually showed that ethyl ester was really not very effective. It tasted terrible. It was really hygroscopic. You still see it out there, but again, it's not by itself. It's always in a mix of products,
And it was very expensive.
It was. Another one that's still on the market, and we've touched on this one, is the good old creatine serums, huh?
I can't believe they're still on the market after knowing that they turned to creatinine right in the bottle on the shelf.
I don't know. They're, I guess they're after that one-time user, but it resurfaced again, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Creatine is not stable in solution, so you can't make a serum as they are indicated. It's nothing more than a liquid creatine. It's already proven that Crealkaline is the only stable form of liquid, so that's the only type of creatine monohydrate that you could actually use in a liquid, but you can't turn creatine into a serum. So that's kind of, again, another marketing scam.
Right.
Let's see. What are some of the other ones? Well,
the other one that came out back in 2007, I want to say, was a conjugated creatine. And not mentioning any names, there's one company that sells this conjugated creatine, and apparently it's a creatine monohydrate bonded to, I want to say, an amino acid, almost like a chelate process that they claim allows you to microdose it and get better bioavailability. But I don't know that I don't know that there's any real. Let's put it this way: I don't know that there is the body of research on its efficacy that there is on monohydrate.
Well, absolutely. And what you got to remember is all of these creatines, in order to make them, you have to start with creatine monohydrate. So you don't just come up with, you don't synthesize creatine HCl or creatine citrate or creatine alpha ketoglutarate or creatine ethyl ester. You have to take monohydrate and do something to it. Keep in mind, when you do that, you are lowering the percentage of creatine monohydrate. You're going from 99% pure down to 60 or 50. It's kind of like protein. Everyone is trying to get a higher protein. Why would you want, typically a whey protein is 80%. Why would you want to drink a whey protein that's only 50% protein?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
You just mentioned a bunch of creatines. Are they worth talking about any of those at all?
You know what? I kind of ran through the creatine HCl is the one that's out there, and their claim to fame is that it goes into solution better.
Okay.
And they will take their powder, put it in solution, and mix it up, and it's clear. But the thing about it is that they only recommend the same as Crealkaline, which is interesting, 1.5 grams per dose. All creatine monohydrate is water soluble at 1.5 grams. So is Crealkaline in 16 ounces of water. They're claiming that, when you saturate it something like, 35, 40, 50 grams, that they are more water soluble than creatine monohydrate. But nobody uses that much. So it doesn't have any effect on, again, the absorption rate of it. Creatine citrate, is out there. which is supposed to be creatine that's been bound to citric acid. But what happens is when you submit that creatine to that acid, you start to get creatinine. So again, high in creatinine levels. That's my big problem with all. You
think that conversion to creatinine actually happens right in the bottle when it's sitting there?
Oh, absolutely, because a lot of them are nothing more than just mixing, malic acid or citric acid. Again, there isn't any science behind this, and, companies are just buying it, from China. There's no real standards to test it against, so all they do is they check the pH. They'll look for citric acid, they'll look for creatine, and guaranteed you're going to find, a good high amount of creatinine, which you don't typically find in well-made creatine monohydrate. The whole idea is to eliminate those byproducts that happen during the manufacturing because you've got water in that whole synthesis process.
And then there's the obvious issue about some of these powders. You have to use scoops. The attitude is more is better. But the reality is, as you pointed out, 1.5 grams every 3 hours is the ideal amount that the body can absorb. And why not take a creatine that's convenient in a capsule then? Because you don't need 5 grams every dose, right?
Absolutely. And, that's kind of what happened with Crealclin is when we first introduced it back in 2001, because the dose was so small, I thought, I'm tired of taking powders. Let's put it in a capsule. And it became, the number one selling creatine because it was easy to use. So again, creatine monohydrate is the best form. Beware of all these different mixes and different claims. But another thing I do hear is, well, if they aren't very good, why do they still work? Well, because you're still getting some creatine monohydrate in all these forms. Mm-hmm. They aren't completely rubbish. They're just lowering the dose. So why pay more money to get less creatine?
Yeah, no, that makes a great point. And the other thing that I keep thinking about is creatine monohydrate may have some of its greatest benefits on the aging community. Cognitive improvements, heart function improvements, muscular improvements, now bone mineral uptake. And elderly people usually don't even eat enough every day. They're going to be reluctant to take a scooper of this and mix it into a protein drink or a glass of juice. It's easier for them to take a couple, 3 capsules and be done with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, creatine just isn't for, athletes, as you said. I'm seeing more and more people, every year who just want to be healthy. My dad is 83, and he's been on Crealclin for the last, since we came out with it, the last 12 years, 13 years. He told his doctor he wasn't going to go off it because he feels better.
Did the doctor try to convince him to go off of it?
Oh, he had some medication issues, and of course they want to take you off everything.
Right.
They adjust his medications, which were causing his dizziness, and he said, "I'm going back on Crealclin." And of course, the guy's like, "Well, creatine's no good for you." And
it's bad for your kidneys. Right. Okay. Yeah.
He goes, "Well, my kidneys are fine, and guess what? You know what? I know where it's made, and I feel better, so I'm taking it."
If you're listening to this interview and you've never heard of Crealclin before, you can actually get a free sample by going to superhumanradio.com and looking down at the bottom right-hand corner of the front page for a banner that says "Ask the Scientist," which is a direct communications connections with Dr. Jeff, and just ask for a free sample of Crealclin. Remember to include your mailing address or you won't get it. But that puts everything to rest. That's another thing. I don't see anybody out there with creatine ethyl ester, creatine phosphate, creatine, whatever, giving away the equivalent of how many doses do you give away as a free sample?
We've been given about a 5-day dose.
Okay, so five doses. I don't see anybody giving away 5 free doses of any of that stuff and going, here, try it, and if you really like it, buy it. You know what? If you don't put your money where your mouth is, you don't believe in your own product.
Well, you know what? That's what I learned a long time ago, Carl. Don't take my word for it. I could be the slickest sales guy, the most intelligent person, but you know what? Try it. Most everybody within the first dose feels something, and that's why we give you so many doses is, try it out before you go, buy something and invest in some money. You should be able to try it. I say in Montana, they say don't buy a horse until you ride it. Well, don't try Crealclin until you try it.
Real quick.
Don't take your word for it.
Real quick. I want to go just a couple minutes over. Why do you think people who are depleted on creatine, in muscle and obviously brain function and so on, you think they're the ones that feel it when they first take it?
No, most people, don't use a creatine. So, when you're using these creatines that are mixed with caffeine and what have you, you don't really know what creatine is supposed to do. But when you get a creatine that is absorbed into your system, the first thing you do, you're more mentally alert. You have more energy. You feel better. One dose, for most people. And then after a couple of days, you've gone to the gym. You've had one of the best workouts, better pumps, recuperation, recovery. But essentially, they're probably depleted in creatine stores.
If I take Crealkaline 3 times a day, in the morning, post-workout, and later in the day. So a couple days ago, I took a dose and didn't realize, because it doesn't get dark out here until like 9:30 right now, 9 o'clock. I took a dose at 8 o'clock, and usually I read before bed. I couldn't fall asleep, and I know the only thing that I did differently was I took the Crealkaline too close to bed, which tells me that it's really doing something.
Absolutely. That is your fuel. It's kind of like, eating sugar or something. Your body gets a little bit excess. It needs to burn it, because you can only store so much. So it will start burning that creatine. And yeah, you could keep awake. Some people, again, work out at night like myself. It doesn't bother me. I sleep like a baby. Where other people, might be more sensitive. So,
well, it's funny because today, the second half hour of this first hour, I will be lecturing on why it's a good idea to train first thing in the morning. And then later in the show, we're going to be joined by a scientist who's going to talk about the therapeutic benefits of intermittent fasting. Dr. Jeff, as always, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for being a sponsor of Superhuman Radio.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody.
Talk soon.